This conference will now be recorded.
How was Yom Kippur, everybody? Let me get some reports. Huh? Okay.
Amazing.
Your third Yom Kippur? Good. Leticia, where were you, Leticia?
At my shul in Pasadena
And the Chabad over there. Good. Good. That went
was
well. Good.
amazing. 26 hours. I didn't think I could do it. I did it.
Okay.
Amazing.
Okay. Good. So it was a hopefully uplifting experience for everybody involved. Okay. Good. So we transition from that and we go to Sukkot. Okay. What is the Sukkah all about, my friends?
I think it's a memory when the Jewish people were in the desert.
Okay. It's to remind us that we were in the desert and what was there in the desert with us? The clouds of glory. Ananei hakavod. The clouds of glory surrounded us. And that gave us this, we were enveloped in this loving embrace for those 40 years. It's interesting. Whereas Pesach is that one-time event of the Exodus, and Shavuot is the one-time event of Matan Torah, standing by Mount Sinai. Sukkot is the 40 years that we spent in the desert with God taking care of us, giving us the food. The food was in the guise of man, the manna falling from heaven. The water came, and that was the be'er, the wellspring of Miriam, in the merit of Miriam. And the clouds enveloped us, leveling mountains, filling up valleys, right? Taking care of us throughout. So I understand why Pesach is on the 15th day of Nisan. That's when we left Egypt. And I understand why Shavuot comes out 49 days later, typically on the 5th day of Sivan, because that's when we stood by Mount Sinai. But why on the 15th day of Tishrei, if we are commemorating this 40-year existence, so why is it celebrated on the 15th day of Tishrei?
Does it not say it anywhere in the text?
It doesn't say it anywhere in the text as to why we do it on the 15th day. It says to do it on the 15th day of Tishrei, but it doesn't say why we do it. I'm sorry?
Does that have anything to do with full moon?
Okay, so Ari pointed out it is the full moon, right? And we like to have our holidays around the full moons. Why is that? Woo! No, not for that reason. Why do we want to have our holidays around the full moon?
It's a clear marker, like a visible, like changing in the calendar.
More than that. More than that. Anybody out there want to tell us why we have it on the why typically it's on the 15th day of the month by the full moon?
Rabbi, I did.
Esther.
So, why Sukkot starts then and the tabernacles are built, right? It's because that's when, after Moshe came back down from the mountain with the second set of Lukot, after being forgiven by Hashem, then they went ahead and the clouds of glory re-infiltrated the camp.
Okay, so beautiful, Esther. Let me fill that out just a little bit more. But coming back one step, so why typically do we like to have the 15th day of the month, the full moon? We are compared to the moon. The Jewish people are compared to the moon. That we might get very, very thin. We might appear to it might seem that we're disappeared, but we exist. We are still here, right? Thousands of years later, with that same strength and vitality, even though, as we say on Pesach, Shebechol Dor Vador, every generation, Ondim Aleinu Lechalotenu, they're those who rise up against us to try to destroy us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matzilenu Miyadam, but God saves us from their hand. So, yes, the 15th is a big day, but why the 15th of this month? So we'll come to what Esther said. I'll expand on that in a moment. The Tur Shulchan Aruch explains that we need to go from our regular dwelling into a temporary dwelling in order to have that vulnerability and have that embrace, that hug of God's presence. But comes comes Pesach time, so that's the summertime. That's when everyone is moving from their winter housing into more open, airy housing. And therefore, it would not be clearly recognizable as the mitzvah. So therefore, he says it was pushed 6 months later. Whereas I like to call it, people are getting ready for what I call the frozen tundra of the Irvine winter. And nevertheless, we leave the comforts and the confines of our home and we go out into the open air. That is how it clearly shows that we're doing this l'shem mitzvah. So according to the Torah, it's not really linked necessarily to this date. It's linked to this time period. And once it's this seasonal period, then we light the 15th day of the month because that's when the moon that we are represented by waxes strong. But as Esther mentioned, that's the explanation of the Vilna Gaon. You know, it's interesting. We're used to having two different orbits. There's the orbit of the Shalosh Regalim, the three pilgrimage holidays, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, and then we have our Yamim Noraim, our high holiday cycle, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. But actually, these two come together in a very fundamental way. And that is, as Esther said, we had lost the clouds of glory when we committed the sin of the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf. And then, as we discussed over Yom Kippur, Moshe coming down with the second tablets, that was a message of salachti, of having been forgiven. And after that, we were told to start to build the Mishkan, start to build the tabernacle, which is where Hashem's presence would be resting in a tangible form. And there's a machloket, dispute amongst the classic commentators. Was the Mishkan only because of the Chet HaEgel? Or was the Mishkan always going to be? But we were taught about it after that. But either way, it was on the 15th day of the month of Tishrei that we commenced the building of the Mishkan. And with that, the clouds of glory returned, and that is what we are celebrating, which is a very, very, very powerful lesson over here. We always look at life as a cycle. Certainly our spirituality has ups and downs and ups and downs. And very often, if you haven't experienced this already, you will experience this. That you come full of energy and this is great, this is fantastic, this is so uplifting and wow, amazing. And then you run into the Jackson Brown running on empty. Because the first time it was a gift. It was to give you a taste. But it wasn't really yours because it was this freebie. And now, compared to, I remember when I was in Israel and I had in my first year post high school studying yeshiva there, and I had that to be expected, inevitable dip. And I spoke to one of my rabbis there, and he explained so beautifully. He said, when an infant is starting to walk, how does he walk? Well, first the parents are holding him up, and he's kind of like moving his legs as they're holding him up, right? He thinks he's walking, and then slowly, he starts putting weight, and he actually is walking along, teetering along, and then holding both hands, and then they're holding just one hand, and then they let go, right? And then soon after he's walking around and the parents are in a different room, if he falls and he cries, that's when they'll come to get him, right? At first he feels like he's walking, but he's not really walking. He's being carried along. But he has to learn to do it on his own. Then it becomes his or hers. And so too, Hashem gives us that burst so you could see just how sweet it can be. But then he takes away that artificial almost burst, and then you've got to work at it. You've got to build it. And then once you build it and it's yours, it's even sweeter than that initial sweetness. But then you can have a dip again, and you have to dig deeper and find it again and again and again and again. So it's not the initial clouds of glory that, hey, we waltz out of Egypt, and guess what? Hey, wow, nice clouds, amazing, right? It's when we lost them and then we had to work to regain them. Those are the clouds of glory that we celebrate. Okay? So Sukkot comes in this Friday night and Shabbat. And then again, Saturday night and Sunday is the second day of Sukkot. That's because we are in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, and we need these 2 days in order to get us. In Israel, you have the first day of Sukkot, which will be Shabbos. Chol Hamoed will be the whole week. The next 6 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then on Shabbos again, they'll have Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah together, right? We have 2 days, first 2 days of Sukkot, Shabbat, Sunday, Chol Hamoed the whole week, and then Shabbat, Sunday, Shmini Atzeret, Simchas Torah. Okay, let's talk about some of the mitzvot of Sukkah. Eating, right? Living, sleeping if you can, though with the mosquitoes and whatever, I'm not sure. But yeah, right, in the sukkah. Okay. The sukkah, how do you build a sukkah? What is the sukkah all about? Let me hear some laws of construction of the sukkah. At least 3 walls or 2 point something walls. Okay. Actually, that is, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. That is in the letters of the word sukkah. Fascinating. Samach, chaf, hey. Samach it's enclosed, has 4 sides to it. Chaf has 3 sides to it. Hey has 2 sides and a little schmitzik over there, right? And that's how the sukkah can be. You could have 2 walls, right? But then you need another wall over here, and then a connecting on the top from that to one of the other walls, and that is enough. It's meant to be this temporary dwelling. Okay? What must the schach be made of? Natural materials that are not susceptible towards impurity. It's not a kli, it's not a finished object. We use branches, we use bamboo, right? We use wood, any sort of thing like that. What must the walls be made of? For question. What must the walls be made of?
Any type of material.
Good. Any material, but it has to be, it can't just flap in the wind. Okay? So we have this prefab, but it breathes. It's not like the tarp, which doesn't allow the air, so the wind is sending up and back, right? It doesn't move. Here we'll use, correct. Here we use, and the shul sukkah we use tarp, but that's not our real wall. The real back wall is the fence. But 1 second, that fence has all these different poles. How is that considered a kosher wall? Concept called lavud, halachic concept. And that is, if it's within 3 tvachim, 9 inches, it's considered to be intact, filled in. Okay? So that is our wall. And the gate on the side is again our wall. We will hang tarp there, but if the tarp moves, the real wall is that. On the other side, so there we just have 2 of those white traffic, whatever they're called, barriers. Thank you. Those 2 white traffic barriers. It doesn't, and that's our real wall. It doesn't go the full extent of the wall. But if I have a sukkah that goes like this, and then part of the wall, so this is, let's say, 15 feet, 20 feet, 5 feet, that's enough. And I could use that whole area, the whole 15 feet, even though this wall is only going 5 feet.
And
Okay?
Rabbi,
Yes.
and I was also going to say the shechach can't be more than 4 tefachim wide because we don't want it to look like a ceiling.
Correct. Correct. Good. Good. Okay? And it needs to be, right? It's a good concept that you can see the stars. It doesn't have to be that you see the stars, but you need to have more shade than sun, and also you can't have an opening of 9 inches of 3 tefachim in the middle. So it needs to be properly filled in. I'm sorry. Correct. Correct. Right. If you're under a tree, we got a problem because that's your schach and that's not kosher schach because it's attached. That's correct. And where? Correct. Correct. Yeah, right. It has in Israel, the way they construct, at least in the religious neighborhoods, is all the balconies are staggered. Right? Balcony, balcony, balcony. And that way everyone has a place to build a sukkah. That's like part of the architectural planning. I'm sorry? Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating. Sukkah is compared to all of the mitzvot. And there are different explanations as to why Sukkah will be compared to all the mitzvot. Some look at it that it's one of the few mitzvot that you are completely immersed in. Right? You're completely immersed in it. Okay? A mikveh you're also completely immersed in. But here you're completely immersed in it as you're living your life. Right? Because religion is not supposed to be something that we do on Saturday or something we do on Sunday. It is supposed to permeate who we are and everything about us. So, Sukkah, we're living our life within the confines of this mitzvah. Another very beautiful concept is that the Sukkah mirrors the odyssey of humankind, meaning we were in a permanent dwelling, and then we leave that permanent dwelling and go into a temporary dwelling, meaning our souls were in the heavens, in the place where souls are, in that spiritual realm. But we're sent down into a dirat arai, as the sukkah is called. The sukkah is called the dirat arai, which is a temporary dira, dwelling arai, a temporary transient dwelling. And that is our life over here. And then after Sukkot, what happens? We go back into our permanent dwelling. So Sukkah is meant to make us realize that we come from a place of permanence into this transient world for a period of time. And every day, every moment here is a gift of opportunity. And then the time comes where we are recalled back to our permanent place. And therefore, it serves as a stark reminder to utilize our time carefully, judiciously, while we are here in this world. So Sukkah really is a reminder of the trip that we are all on, and it gives us that reminder, or if you will, that kick in the pants to make sure that we use it as well as we can. Okay, so we have 2 days of Yom Tov. The first 2 days, that's Shabbos, Sunday, 4:15 Sunday afternoon. All are invited to my house, or at least my sukkah, right, for a Simchat sukkah. Come with a Dvar Torah, come with a song, come with an appetite for Natalie's delicious desserts, and it's a very nice event that we have. So that's 4:15 on Sunday afternoon. Okay. We also have the lulav and etrog. It's called the lulav and etrog. Actually, it's 4 minim. It's 4 different species, right? And we shake the lulav and etrog. We make the bracha on it daily. On Shabbos, we're not going to use the lulav and etrog because Shabbos, and what do we? We're afraid that might be carried outside of an Erev, the same reason that we gave for shofar on Rosh Hashanah, right? So really, Min HaTorah, the first day, the only day of Lulav and Etrog that is Min HaTorah is the first day. Ulekachtem lachem bayom harishon. You'll take for yourselves on that first day. Nevertheless, we don't use it on Shabbos on the first day, but we'll use it the second day of Yom Tov, and we'll use it all the days of Chol HaMoed, right? The bracha is made each day, right? Those who are coming to shul, we use it during the Hakafot. We circled the bima, saying certain tefillot, the Hoshana tefillot, right? Very, very, very beautiful. What do those Daled Minim represent? Many different things. Sorry?
You remind me of like rain sticks in a way because you're shaking the lulav and etrog and praying for rain.
It's the so Cheyenne wants to say it's our Indian rain dance. Did you guys ever see the movie? The Frisco Kid?
Yeah.
Okay. Orzarua latzadik ula Yisroel to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left. Can your God make it rain? Our God doesn't do that, which is terrible writing. Our God does do that. But in the movie, our God doesn't do that. But every once in a while, truly, Gene Wilder, a true classic. Yeah. So the idea, well, before we get to it, let's just deal with Cheyenne's point, because there is validity to that. Meaning, we take all of these things that are rain dependent, and we do a mitzvah with them, right? To show Hashem that we appreciate the rain and we want to use the rain as a means, as a vehicle towards serving you. So therefore, we're going to show our appreciation for the rain and our correct utilization of that blessing by using it for mitzvot. And the shaking it, the way we shake is basically clockwise, there, up and down. We don't turn it over to shake it down. We just lower it, right? And that is that the bracha, the blessing, should come to us from all sides. So yes, in a very basic way, we are taking all of these growth, rain based. Everything is rain based, but these are more clearly rain based. And that way, we're showing Hashem, we will use your brachas, your blessings, to properly serve you. Yes. And then on other levels, so it represents those, right? The etrog has taste and fragrance. That's those who have good deeds, and also mitzvot and wisdom, right, and good deeds, right. Torah and Torah Masim Tovim, right, Torah and good deeds. Then you have the hadassim, which have the fragrance, but don't have. That's the myrtle that have the fragrance, but don't have a taste. You have the lulav, which comes from the palm tree, which is a date tree, which has taste but doesn't have fragrance, and the arava, the willows, have neither, and that represents all of Klal Yisrael, all parts, and we all come together. You have to hold all of them together. And it's interesting, people always wonder, yeah, Rabbi, which side does the willows go on this side or go on that side? So we hold the lulav in our right hand, since that has 3 mitzvot, and we hold the etrog in our left hand. Okay? And we have the willows next to the etrog. And that's a good way to remember that we want to put those which have neither the fragrance or the taste, which have neither the Torah, the Masim Tovim, or the mitzvot, next to those who have both, in order that they can have a good positive influence. I'm not saying that's why we do it, but that's just a good way to remember. Yes, Ann.
There, I remember hearing some sort of connection as well with like the original, like what Papa did in the garden, that it was supposed to be an
Okay.
etrog.
Okay. So there are different opinions as to what was the sin, what was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It certainly was not what? An apple. Okay? Michelangelo, with all our apologies, it's not one of the choices. What are the choices? Fig, wheat, wine, right? Right? Grape, right? And etrog is also up there. And that really is a very important lesson, going back to what we discussed a little bit before at the clouds of glory, that we can take that with which we stumbled and turn it into something of Kedusha. Right? That's what we have discussed before Yom Kippur, how a person's sins can turn into zechuyot, into merits, if we utilize that as a growth, moving forward experience, then that ended up being a very positive experience. So here too, that idea is also expressed. Another common idea is that the lulav represents the spine, and the etrog is the heart. It's actually a four-chambered. If you open it up to make your jam afterwards, it actually is four-chambered. And you have the aravot, which are the lips, and you have the hadassim, which look like the eyes. Okay, and that is that there needs to be this unity of our how we feel, how we present, how we speak, and how we perceive. Okay? Now, the eyes take in, and then the mouth is what delivers the way we have processed that which we are seeing. There needs to be this unity of all that, and it needs to be in an uplifted manner as best as we can. Okay, so that's the lulav and etrog, and that we do not on Shabbos, but on Sunday Yom Tov, and then throughout the week. The last day, Friday, is called Hoshana Rabbah in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple. That's when they would bring all these massive aravos and have a whole ceremony. And there we do Hoshana Rabbah. We do 7 circuits around the bima, and that is a much longer davening. We wear the kittel. It's a whole to do. It's not a Shabbos. It's not a Yom Tov in terms of malacha, things that we can do. Right, the intermediary days, Monday through Friday, Chol Hamoed. Chol, it's the mundane of the holiday. So we're still eating and drinking, and the sukkah still applies. We're still shaking the an etrog, but it's not a chag in terms of driving, electricity, and all of those things. The person doesn't need to go to work. It's beautiful if one can take off. Person needs to go to work, then one does go to work, but is sure to keep the mitzvot of Sukkot as we make our way through that week. Once again, being that the first day is Shabbos and the next day is Sunday, including Saturday night, on Yom Tov, how many Su'udot do we need to have? 2. Shabbos, we need to have a third. The problem again with the third meal this Shabbos is you can't have it late in the day, because that you need to have an appetite for the Yom Tov meal that night. So either you could split, as we discussed with Rosh Hashanah, either split your Shabbos lunch into 2 meals, make kiddush, wash. We're not having the meals here in shul. Make kiddush, wash, have the first course, bench, go for a little walk, come back, wash, have your third meal. Or have your third meal a little later on in the day, but not a full bread meal. Shalashudas, the third meal, could be had with mizonot, cake, with fruit, with vegetables, with some fish, right? It doesn't need to be a full bread meal, and therefore one will do it in such a way. Same thing the next Shabbos. Okay, so let's come now to the next days. Right, we're not going to be having class this next Tuesday. Right, the next day is Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. In Israel, it's just the 8th day, and it's clearly not Sukkot anymore. But for us, Shabbos, we treat it as it might be Shmini Atzeret, but it might be the 7th day. Because if Sunday we treat that might be the first day, then Shabbos might be the 7th day. So it might still be Sukkot. So what do we do in terms of our sukkah then? We're sort of stuck in the middle. What do we do? So we eat in the sukkah because it might be the 7th day of Sukkot. But we don't make the brachot. We don't make the blessings. I can't make a blessing that you commanded us to sit in the sukkah because it might be the 8th day. And the 8th day, there is no command to sit in the sukkah. So in Israel, Shmini Atzeret, there's no reason to sit in the sukkah. Sukkot is over. But here, where we have the 2 days, so the 8th day, Shmini Atzeret, what we call Shmini Atzeret, might actually be the 7th day of Sukkot. So we eat in the sukkah, but we don't make the bracha of leishev sukkah, right? The bracha Asher Kirishonim Mitzasav, you can sanctified us and commanded us leishev to sit, or really more accurately, to dwell in the sukkah. Okay, in Israel, that 8th day is a busy, busy day. That 8th day, they've got, we're going to, right, what Megillah are we going to read on Sukkot? Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, which is Hevel Havalim, Amar Kohelet, vanity of vanities, right? It's looking at all the wealth and all the riches of this world and recognizing just how fleeting, how passing it all is. And certainly, right, in the newsletter will go out tomorrow, the idea of Sukkot also is the idea that we realize that our right, Sukkot is Zman Simchatenu. It's interesting. In the davening, Pesach we call it Zman, the time of Cherutenu, our freedom. Shavuot we call it Zman Matan Toratenu, the time of the giving of the Torah. Sukkot is called Zman Simchatenu, the time of our happiness, because it allows us to recognize that it's not things, it's not stuff that gives us happiness, right? And therefore, we're able to leave that and live very, very simply and have that happiness of community, of family, of friends, of God around us. That is the true source, the true sense of simcha that we have. So Sukkot is Zman Simchatenu. On the 8th day, we switch it to Shmini Chag Ha'atzeret Hazeh. Shmini, the 8th day, the holiday of Atzeret. Atzeret means gathering in. Okay? It's gathering in, meaning that's the closing of this whole holiday season. And it's a time for us to gather in what we gained Rosh Hashanah, what we gained Yom Kippur, what we gained over Sukkot, to gather it in. In Israel, like I said, so you've got a lot going down on that Shabbos. You've got all of your Simchat Torah dancing, Hakafot, getting Aliyot, all that. We'll come to that soon. You also have the reading of Kohelet. You also have Yizkor, right? We break it up, right? Shabbos is a little more serious day, right? We'll say Yizkor, right? Those who have lost close relatives, we say Yizkor. We read the Megillah of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, and then comes Saturday night. That's when it's no longer Sukkot by any calculation. right? We already took care of our Suffolk Yom, our perhaps day being Shabbos. This is day 8 or 9. So it's either day 8 or it's Sunday, right? So no sukkah whatsoever on Simchat Torah, and we take out all the Sifrei Torah, and we dance. We have 7 hakafot, 7 different times that we circle the bima with the Sifrei Torah, and we are rejoicing with the Torah. That's the time that we stop, that we complete the last parsha of the Torah, Zot HaBracha, and we start Bereshit, just the first Aliyah, the 7 days of creation. We start Bereshit, and then that next Shabbos is when we will actually have Bereshit as our parsha. So shouldn't Simchat Torah be Shavuot time? Why are we having Simchas Torah now? The proper time for rejoicing of the Torah should be the time that we received the Torah. So different ideas.
But we always,
Yes,
I was just going to
yes,
say,
Daryl.
is it because we're always looking forward? You know, Simchat Torah is basically kind of starting over rather than uh,
Okay. Yes, so that's why as soon as we finish, we start. Okay? And maybe also it has to do with this idea of Atzeret, that we've gathered in all of the energy, all of the teachings, hopefully all of the inspiration of all of these days. Now we're ready to rock and roll, ready to start that Torah again. A beautiful mashal. Why is given though? Why now? And that parable, that mashal, that parable, is of a king who had a daughter. And he was looking for a suitor for his daughter. But he had one stipulation. Whoever it was would not be able to see, speak to, have any encounter with his daughter until the marriage. So people are a little nervous. Well, what's he hiding over here? But finally, a suitor comes forward and says, if this is the king's daughter and he's vouching for her, then I know she must be amazing. And he agrees to those conditions, and he marries her, right? But he's not so sure, it takes a little while. 6 months later, he has another big celebration. Because now he sees she's beautiful, she's kind, she's intelligent. She has everything going for her. So it's only now that he fully appreciates her. The nimshal is that Hashem gave us the Torah. What do we say? Naaseh v'nishma. We said, we'll do it. We'll do it. Now just tell us exactly what are we supposed to do? Exactly what is it that we agreed to? What is it that we accepted? We understood if Hashem is giving us the Torah, this is something that could only be bracha, only be blessing for us. 6 months later, that's when we have this celebration, this rejoicing of the Torah. Now we understand the gem, the diamond, the value of what we received. Now we go ahead and we have that celebration. So and that day, Sunday, we have dancing with the hakafot. We have everybody gets an aliyah. Right? Please God soon, guys. Right? Everybody gets an aliyah. Right? And we have, and it's just a lot of good things going on. We have a barbecue meal here Saturday night for the whole community. And then we have, again, a deli lunch the next day for the whole community. Actually, what we do is we daven shacharis with all the dancing, all the kavos. Is all partaking of the Torah reading, musaf, and then we daven mincha right away. And then we have our meal, and then everybody could go home. We reconvene from Ma'ariv. I think Yontif ends about 7:05. We reconvene from Ma'ariv after Yontif has ended at 7:15. That way, otherwise, the timing to go home and then come back. So that's how we schedule that. So that's what we have coming up on the horizon, on the menu. Any questions?
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Sorry?
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah.
I have
Yes.
What does it kind of look like on like the women's side versus the men's side for Simchat Torah?
Okay. So when we having the dancing, the women also, if they want, can get a Torah. The women also are dancing, right? With, without a Torah, that's a matter of preference, whatever. And then when the men are getting an aliyah, so typically the women go during that time, and they have. I have to make sure it's being arranged this year. Usually Karen Wolf helps arrange this. That they have someone, a woman will speak about like the Torah reading for Bereshit is about creation. Each of the days of creation, and then Shabbat. So someone will speak on each of those about each of those days, and also I think often someone lanes it from a chumash, right? So that's what the women are doing typically, while the men are getting their aliyot. But the dancing we're all together, the davening we're all together, Musaf we reconvene all together, and yeah, that's how that looks. Yes, Ladero.
question about Ush Pizin.
Oh yes, good. Good. So the Ushpizin are those heavenly celestial guests who come to us each night of Sukkot, right? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, and Yosef. So those are the 7 Ushpizin who come to visit us each night. A different one comes, and we herald their arrival. We welcome them with a short tefillah that's found in the Sidurim for the Ushpizin. Yes, so that's an aspect that when we are vulnerable, when we're out there, and when we are welcoming guests, then these very distinguished guests also arrive. Thank you for bringing that up, Ladero. Good.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. We good? Okay. We are good then. I wish everybody a good week and a good. See you all over Sukkot, over the Yom Tov. Looking forward to the marathon continuing, especially for the rabbis. We call this our tax season. Yeah. Like after this one was like, I just have to speak on Shabbos, like Friday night, Shabbos morning. That's it. Wow, that's like a vacation. Okay, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, be well, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.